The storm outside the station was unlike anything Jason had ever seen in space. It wasn't wind or rain, space had neither, but it was a magnetic storm, strong enough to fry circuits, confuse sensors, and turn communication to static. Jason, the only human on this remote outpost, was stuck inside the reinforced cabin of the station. The power was running low, lights flickering. He was used to being alone. But this time, he wasn't. She was there, the alien girl. Her name was Soraya. A translator device hung around her neck, though her voice still carried a soft, melodic hum. She wasn't from any species Jason had read about, and yet she was here sent by her people to exchange knowledge. Soraya had skin that shimmered like silver under the emergency lights. Her eyes were deep violet, glowing faintly in the dim room. She wasn't just beautiful, she was strange, unreadable. Jason had been careful to keep his distance, following all protocols, no cultural offense, no misunderstandings. But the storm had other plans. The station shook again. Something outside groaned, like metal twisting under pressure. Jason glanced at the panel. Communications dead. External sensors dead. The cabin was isolated. He tried a weak joke to ease the tension. Guess we're locked in here together, huh? Soraya tilted her head, studying him quietly. Then, she moved to the door, pressed her hand to the control panel, and locked it with a soft beep. Jason frowned. Why did you lock it? She turned slowly, her violet eyes fixed on him. Then, she stepped closer, her voice barely a whisper, yet clear through the translator. It's just us now, human. Jason blinked. Her voice held no fear, only certainty. He chuckled nervously. Yeah, just us, don't worry. The storm won't last forever. Soraya didn't smile. She kept her gaze on him, taking another step closer. Jason noticed her breathing was shallow, her eyes flicking occasionally to the walls. Why did you lock the door, Soraya? She hesitated, then whispered, because it is safer this way. Jason crossed his arms. Safer? From what? Soraya looked down, then up at him again, her silver hair shimmering slightly. There is something in the storm, something that seeks life. Jason felt a chill run down his spine. Wait, what? She nodded slowly. I wasn't supposed to tell you. My people know of these storms. They are not just magnetic waves. There are entities, things that hide in the energy fields. They feed on minds. Jason's throat went dry. You're telling me something's out there, something alive. Soraya took another step closer. Yes, it is drawn to thought, to emotions. If we stay silent, calm, we might be ignored. He rubbed his face. This was insane. If this was true, why wasn't he briefed? Was this some test, a joke? But Soraya's eyes, they held no playfulness, only warning. Another deep groan echoed. Through the station, the lights dimmed further. Soraya suddenly touched his arm, gently but firm. We must stay close. It confuses them when life forms are joined together. It becomes harder for them to read separate minds. Jason froze. Joined together? What do you mean? She looked up at him, voice lower than before. Physical. Proximity, touch, contact. It blurs thought patterns. It's our only defense. He stared at her, unsure whether to laugh or be terrified. Her hand was still on his arm, warm, smooth, unearthly. So, you're saying if we stay close, like touching, they can't find us? She nodded. That is what my elders taught me. Jason hesitated. Part of him wanted to question more, but the way the walls hummed, the groaning metal, something told him this wasn't just superstition. What happens if they find us? He asked. Soraya's eyes darkened. They do not kill quickly. They invade the mind. Feed on your fears. You lose yourself, piece by piece. Jason shivered. She wasn't joking. Without thinking, he moved closer. She didn't flinch. Instead, she raised her hand and placed it gently against his chest, right over his heart. I can hear it, she whispered. It is strong. Jason swallowed hard. He tried to ignore the rising anxiety, the burning questions, but the warning in her voice was enough. Outside, the storm raged louder, and somewhere in the static, Jason thought he heard whispers, not Soraya's, not his own mind. Something else, something calling. He looked down at the alien girl pressed lightly against him. her silver skin warm against his. "We'll stay close," he said quietly. "We'll ride this out together." But deep down, he knew this was only the beginning, because the storm wasn't just outside anymore. Something was already trying to get in. The storm outside the station grew worse, and Jason could hear faint whispers crawling through the static of the walls. He wanted to believe it was just his mind playing tricks, but Soraya's presence beside him felt too real, too urgent. She didn't move away, her hands still resting against his chest, as if listening to the rhythm of his heartbeat was keeping her anchored. Jason swallowed hard, his breath shallow, eyes flicking to the locked cabin door. "What if the storm doesn't end soon?" he asked quietly, his voice barely above a whisper. Soraya's glowing violet eyes met his, unblinking. "If it lasts too long, we must merge our minds, or it will come for us separately." Jason's brow furrowed. "Merge our minds? How? I'm human." Soraya's expression didn't change, but her voice turned softer, like she was explaining to a child. "Through connection, skin to skin, trust, is the way of my people when we face these entities. We create a bond so tight that even the feeders cannot tell us apart." Jason's throat was dry. This wasn't a briefing he'd ever received. No training manual taught him how to connect with an alien this way. "Are you sure this isn't something else?" he asked carefully, but even as he said it, he could feel the air changing. A coldness creeping along the walls, not from the failing temperature regulators, but from something unseen. Soraya stepped even closer, until barely any space separated them. "I feel it coming closer," she whispered, her breath warm against his neck. "If you doubt, it will find a way in." Jason's mind raced. Was this manipulation or survival? But the way the walls vibrated, the sound of whispers scratching in his ears, it was becoming impossible to deny. His body moved before his mind could catch up. He wrapped an arm around Soraya's waist, pulling her flush against him. She gasped, softly, not out of fear, but surprise. Their skin touched his human warmth against her cool, silvery smoothness, and then something shifted. The cold around them eased slightly, as if an invisible gaze slid away. Jason blinked. "It's quieter." Soraya nodded against his chest. "They lose track when minds feel as one." Jason didn't understand the science, but instinct told him she was right. Then came the part he wasn't ready for. Soraya's hands traced lightly up his arms, her eyes searching his. "We need to be closer, more connected. It's the only way." Her voice trembled now, not from fear, but urgency. Jason hesitated, heart pounding. This wasn't in any handbook. But outside, the whispers stirred again, angrier this time. Soraya whispered one more time, close to his ear. "Trust me, human, or we will both be lost." Jason exhaled slowly, then nodded. "Okay, I trust you." As the cabin lights flickered once more, and the storm howled like a living beast outside, Jason braced himself, not just for the storm but for whatever connection he was about to make with the alien girl in his arms. The lights dimmed again, leaving only the pale emergency glow. Jason held Soraya close, his mind torn between confusion and survival. Her body was slender but firm, her silver skin strangely cold at first, but now warming where they touched. She pressed her forehead gently against his chest, her voice barely audible. "You must let me in. Jason, your mind, your thoughts. If you resist, the connection will break." Jason's pulse raced. He wasn't sure what she meant, but the sound of the storm, the whispers scratching against the walls, grew louder, closer. He closed his eyes, focusing on her presence, trying to steady his breath. "What do I do?" he whispered. She answered softly, "Feel me, think of me, share your warmth." It sounded simple, yet the idea of letting his mind open to an alien was terrifying. Still, when he thought of Soraya, her voice, her gaze, the delicate trembling of her hands, something inside him responded. A warmth, a light. And then, it happened. A sudden jolt ran through his body, like an electric pulse, but not painful. His vision blurred, then sharpened, and for a brief moment, he saw her memories. Strange skies of violet and gold, twin suns, cities that spiraled into the clouds. He gasped and almost pulled back, but Soraya whispered, "Don't stop, stay with me." Jason forced himself to stay still, breathing slow. Focusing on her face, the connection deepened. He felt her, thoughts not as words, but as feelings, fear, sadness, and loneliness. She had come here not just for research, but because her people never returned. She was alone. Just like him, Jason's chest tightened with understanding. He wasn't just saving himself, he was keeping her alive too. He raised his hand slowly, brushing her silver hair back gently. "I'm here, Soraya," he whispered. "I'm not going anywhere." Suddenly, the whispers outside the cabin turned into angry hissing, like something was frustrated. Unable to breach their bond, Jason could feel a presence just beyond the walls. Searching for cracks in their connection, Soraya gripped him. Tighter, her breath shaky. They're trying, harder now. But together, they cannot break through. Jason held her firmly, his fear now replaced by resolve. Whatever was out there, it wasn't getting in, not while he was here. As their minds stayed linked, Jason felt a strange calm spread through him. As if Soraya's thoughts were blending with his own, he could feel her trust, her gratitude. The cabin still shook, but the storm's power felt distant now. Jason opened his eyes and looked down at her. She was watching him, her violet eyes glowing softly. "We're connected now," she whispered. "As long as we stay like this, we are safe." Jason nodded slowly, a small smile breaking through his tension. "Then we stay like this, until it's over." Outside, the storm roared, but inside, for the first time, Jason didn't feel alone. Hours passed, though Jason couldn't tell exactly how long. Time inside the sealed cabin felt different, stretched between moments of quiet and distant, ghostly hissing beyond the walls. The storm wasn't just a storm, it was alive, and it was angry. Yet, inside the small space, Jason and Soraya remained close, their minds still lightly connected. She had rested her head against his shoulder, her breathing steady, while his hand rested carefully on her back. Feeling the gentle rise and fall with every breath she took, Jason whispered, "Are you sure this is working?" The thought of some invisible predator circling them was unbearable. Soraya nodded slightly, not lifting her head. "I can still feel them outside, but they're confused. The bond shields us to them. We are one mind." Jason exhaled slowly. It was still hard to understand how this worked, but he couldn't deny it every time he thought of her, focused on her warmth. The storm's pressure seemed to pull back, but then something changed. Soraya's body tensed suddenly. Jason noticed, her fingers gripping his shirt tighter, her voice trembling. "One of them is stronger. It has found our trail." Jason froze. "What do we do now?" She lifted her head slowly, her eyes no longer calm but flickering with a faint glow. "We have to deepen the connection," she said, voice urgent, deeper than before. "Our thoughts must completely merge." Jason stared at her, uncertain. "How do we do that?" She hesitated, then her gaze locked onto his. "Through complete trust. Vulnerability, physical closeness is not enough. We must let each other in fully. No walls, no secrets." Jason's heart pounded. Letting someone into his mind completely, that was terrifying. But outside, the whispers became voices, angry, hungry, clawing at the air around the cabin. He could almost feel the pressure in his skull, like something tapping to get in. Soraya reached up, her cool hand against his cheek. "Please, Jason, I cannot do this without you. If you do not open your mind, they'll tear us apart." Jason swallowed hard, then nodded. He closed his eyes, trying to push past the fear, the suspicion. Instead, he focused on her touch, her presence, the quiet sadness she carried. And then, like a door unlocking, something clicked between them. Jason gasped as a rush of sensations filled him, memories, feelings, images. He saw Soraya's lonely rival at the station, her fear of being the last of her kind, her quiet fascination with humans, especially with him. And she saw his memories, two earthly skies, childhood laughter, the cold emptiness of space work, the aching loneliness he never admitted aloud. It was overwhelming, but it was also comforting. Soraya whispered, "Good, good. Keep going." Their bond grew stronger, and with it, the noise outside weakened. Jason felt a strange warmth spread through his mind, not his own, but Soraya's. She was protecting him, shielding his thoughts, but he wanted to protect her too. He focused on his feelings, the stubborn will to survive, to not let her suffer. Alone. Suddenly, the storm screamed, the entire cabin shaking violently. Jason felt a sharp coldness stab at his mind, a foreign presence pushing hard. Soraya cried out softly, her body trembling. "It's here, the strongest one," she gasped. Jason gritted his teeth. He wasn't going to lose, not like this. He pulled Soraya closer, forehead against hers, forcing every thought to focus on their connection. "You're not alone," Jason whispered. "I'm here, I'm not letting go." Their minds surged together like two rivers crashing into one stream, stronger, brighter. The pressure snapped, the coldness vanished, and outside the storm's screams suddenly stopped. Silence. Jason opened his eyes, breath heavy, and found Soraya staring at him, eyes wide but smiling faintly. "We did it," she whispered. "You saved us." Jason chuckled softly, exhausted. "No. We saved each other." The storm was gone, but something had changed between them. They weren't strangers anymore. They were connected. For the first time since the storm began, the cabin felt still. The air was heavy, but the terrifying pressure that once pressed against Jason's mind was gone. Yet, even in the silence, he felt Soraya's presence inside his thoughts, soft and warm, like a gentle voice humming somewhere deep within. He looked at her, still holding her close, and asked quietly, "Is it really gone, that thing?" Soraya nodded, her silver hair brushing his face. "Yes, for now, but it won't forget. The strong one, once it finds a mind it desires it, will come back, stronger, smarter." Jason frowned. "Then what do we do? Just wait for the next storm?" Soraya's expression turned serious. She pulled back just enough to look him in the eyes. "We don't have to wait. There's a way to sever its connection to us, but it comes with a cost." Jason's heart sank. "What kind of cost?" She looked away, hesitant. "If we want to be truly safe, our minds must remain linked, permanently." The word struck him like a cold wave. "Permanently? You mean forever?" Soraya nodded slowly. "It's the only way. A permanent bond will mask us completely. The entity won't sense to minds anymore. It will think we've become something new, something it can't feed on." Jason sat back, mind reeling. A permanent bond with an alien. He barely knew her, yet, after what they'd just shared, some part of him already knew her better than any human he'd ever met. "And what happens if we bond like that?" he asked. "Will I still be me?" Soraya smiled faintly, sadness in her eyes. "Yes, but you'll never be alone in your mind again. I will always be there, hearing your thoughts, feeling your emotions." The idea was terrifying and yet strangely comforting. Jason had lived in space for years, always alone in his quarters, his mind his only company. Now, the thought of never being alone again was different, tempting. Jason looked at her, truly looked. She wasn't just an alien girl, she was his lifeline in this haunted place. She had risked herself to protect him, and when she smiled, it wasn't alien anymore, it was familiar. "What do I need to do?" he asked softly. Soraya's eyes glowed gently, her hand rising to his cheek. "Just say yes, with your heart open." Jason swallowed hard, feeling the weight of the decision, but deep down, he already knew his answer. "Yes," he whispered, voice steady. "Let's do it." Soraya's eyes shimmered with relief and gratitude. She pressed her forehead against his, her voice a soft hum. "Then hold still, and let me in fully." Jason closed his eyes, surrendering himself. He felt warmth bloom between them, not physical, but within their minds, as if their very thoughts were weaving together. For a moment, he saw flashes of her world, her past, her hopes. She saw his too, his childhood, his loneliness, his quiet dreams of connection. And then, it was done. Jason opened his eyes. The cabin was still. The storm was gone. But inside, he wasn't alone. Soraya's presence was there, calm, warm, watching. "You'll never be alone again, Jason," she whispered inside his mind, her real voice and her thought voice blending. Jason smiled tiredly. "I know, and I don't mind." Outside, space was silent, but inside the small cabin, two souls were now one. ChatGPT said. The hours after the bond felt different. Jason could still hear his own thoughts, but Soraya's presence was there, a soft echo within his mind, never intrusive, but constant. Every time a stray memory or emotion stirred within him, he felt her gentle awareness. It was like having a quiet companion in his head, watching, listening, and sometimes even humming faintly in an alien melody he didn't recognize, but found comforting. Soraya sat across from him now, her violet eyes studying his face with curiosity. "How do you feel?" she asked softly. Jason chuckled under his breath. "Weird. Like I'm not just me anymore. But it's not bad, it's just new." She smiled gently. "You'll adjust. My people have lived this way for generations." Jason raised an eyebrow. "All of you? Always connected to someone else?" Soraya nodded. "We are never alone, Jason. Our kind pairs for life, through mind and body. It is how we survive storms like this, and how we live." Jason leaned back, absorbing that truth. "Humans aren't like that. We're used to having privacy, secrets, thoughts that belong only to ourselves." Soraya tilted her head, her silver hair falling to one side. "I can learn to give you space, within the mind, but there will always be a link, no matter how faint." Jason didn't mind anymore. The loneliness he had carried like an invisible burden felt lighter, even now. When he thought about memories of his family on Earth or quiet regrets, he sensed Soraya feeling them too, not judging, just understanding. He looked at her and smiled faintly. "I guess I'll never win an argument again, huh?" Soraya laughed softly, the sound bright and light. "Probably not. I'll know when you're lying." Jason chuckled with her, the cabin feeling less cold, less isolated. But then Soraya's smile faded, her expression turning serious. "Jason, there's something I haven't told you." His heart sank a little. "What is it?" She took a deep breath. "Once bonded, if one of us dies, the other feels it. Feels everything. Pain, fear, the end." Jason went quiet, staring at her. "So if I die, you'll feel it all." She nodded silently. "And if I die, you'll feel it too." That weight settled heavy between them. It wasn't just a bond of minds, it was a bond of fate. Their lives were connected. Now, for better or worse. Jason stood up, pacing the small cabin, running a hand through his hair. "That's a lot to carry." Soraya stood too, her hand reaching for his arm gently. "I know, but you chose this, Jason, and I won't let anything harm you. That is my promise." He turned to face her, seeing the sincerity in her glowing eyes. He wasn't sure what the future held, but one thing was clear: he wasn't alone anymore. Whatever storms came next, they would face them together. Jason smiled faintly. "Then we better make sure we both stay alive, huh?" Soraya smiled back. "Yes, together, and deep within their shared minds." That promise echoed like a quiet oath, never alone again. Days passed, and the storm outside the station finally faded into nothing but distant space silence. But inside the cabin, nothing was the same. Jason and Soraya had settled into a strange rhythm, their bond always humming softly between their thoughts. They didn't need to speak aloud anymore. When Jason felt restless, she knew it. When Soraya felt afraid of the silence returning, Jason felt it too. They were two minds, but one shared space, forever connected. Yet, the calm didn't last forever. On the 5th day, the station's sensors flickered back to life. A signal was coming through. Rescue ships from the central colony had arrived, searching for survivors. Jason's heart leapt. He was going home. But then his joy was cut short by a whisper in his mind, not his own. "If you leave, the bond will suffer." He turned to Soraya, who stood by the window, staring into the blackness of space. She had heard the signal too, but her eyes looked distant, almost sad. "They'll take me back to Earth," Jason said slowly. "You'll stay here." She shook her head gently. "If we separate, the bond weakens. It will tear us apart. Or worse, it will leave us both broken." Jason swallowed hard. He had never thought about what would happen after rescue. The bond wasn't just an invisible thread, it was life. If stretched too far, it would snap. If severed, they'd both suffer, lose parts of themselves. He paced the room, torn between the life he'd left behind and the strange, irreversible connection he now shared with Soraya. In his mind, her emotions whispered loneliness, fear of abandonment, quiet acceptance of her fate. She was ready to be left behind, even if it killed her inside. Jason stopped pacing. He looked at her, truly seeing her, not just the alien girl he was stranded with, but the soul that had become part of his. He stepped close, lifting her chin gently. "I'm not leaving," he said firmly. "Where I go, you go too." She blinked, her violet eyes wide, shimmering with disbelief. "But your people, your home." Jason smiled faintly. "Home isn't just a place, it's who you're with. And I'm not going to survive this universe if I have to tear half of myself away." Saraya's expression broke into a trembling smile, tears glistening in her glowing eyes. She rested her forehead against his, the bond between them pulsing warmly. Together, they turned to face the communication console. Jason activated the channel. "This is Jason Reeve," he said, voice steady. "I'm alive, and I'm not alone. I'm bringing someone with me." The voice on the other end crackled. "Understood, Jason. We'll prepare for two." Jason smiled at Saraya. In his mind, her voice whispered sweetly, "Thank you, human, for choosing me." He whispered back, "You were never just a choice, Saraya. You're a part of me now." And as the rescue ship approached, Jason knew one truth would follow him forever. He came to the stars alone, but he would never return that way. Asterisk.